For this challenge, we're looking at adoptions from Austin Animal Centre, and we're trying to verify their claim that over 90% of their pets that come into their centre get adopted, they get returned to their owners or transferred to a rescue centre. So let's take a look at the data itself. I'm actually going to start at the input step here because we have two fields here, date, time and month, year. And these are basically exactly the same field. As you can see from some of the examples here, I did verify, and I hope that if you were worried yourself, you verified it by just doing a Boolean calculation to see if they were exactly the same for every single row, and they are, and therefore that's why I'm just unticking that field, that month year field, from the very beginning of the workflow, because we don't need to consider it. It's just a duplicated field. So then if we come and take a look at the data, then you can see that we've got a lot of rows here that we're working with, about 130,000 rows. And we've got all different types of animals that are coming in. We've got what happened to those animals. We've got some information about each individual ID and some other fields to consider here. So we are looking at just cats and dogs for this challenge. So we're just going to filter to just include cats and dogs. And then we're going to group up these outcome types into these three main ones. So adoption, return to owner, and transfer. We're going to group those values using the little paperclip icon at the top. So when you group them together, then you are prompted to rename them. So we just rename that to the field as suggested in the challenge. And then we group up all the remaining options that we have here, and we'd call that other. So just holding down Control and clicking each of those options to group those values together. So that's what I've done. In the next step, I just wanted to show you the process. So now my outcome type field is simply these two ones. So you can see already we have proved it at an overall level. So we've got 95% of rows are adopted, returned to owner or transferred. But we want to see it by animal type as well. So for our cats and our dogs. The reason that we excluded these other animals is because the sample size is really quite small. So if I go back to here, then the next largest after dog and cat, it's only 5% of our data. So it's not really a fair comparison to be using just 5% of our data to try and validate that claim. And for example, livestock is only 24 rows, or birds are only 612. I thought it would just be best to focus on cats and dogs because it wouldn't be fair to be trying to prove a point against such a small data sample otherwise. And anyway, their claim relates to overall. It's not actually segregating it to different animals. I just wanted to create a challenge where it shows that it does apply to cats and dogs individually as well. Okay, so grouped those outcome types together. So now we're going to aggregate. So we're going to group by our animal type and our outcome type. And then we're going to use that number of rows that is sitting at the bottom of your fields always. It's like an auto-generated field that we can use in aggregate steps. And so we've got our number of rows for each of these outcome types and each of the animal types too. So let's go ahead and calculate that percent of total. So first of all, we need our total, and for that I've written a fixed LOD. So the fixed LOD for the total rows for each animal type, we're grouping by the animal type, and we're just summing up the number of rows there. And that allows us to then do the percentage of total calculation. So if we work from the inside out to read this calculation, we have 100 times the number of rows over the total number of rows. And then we're just rounding that to one decimal place so that we can see that when we're looking at our adopted, returned to owner or transferred animals, they account for 96% of dogs and 93% of cats. Okay, and then finally, just to reshape our output so that it looks like the output in the challenge, then we're going to just pivot. We're going to do a rows to columns pivot. So remember, you can change that via this drop down here. We're going to have our outcome type in the top orange box and then our percentage of total in the bottom orange box here. And that is all that we need to do for this challenge. You might need to rearrange some fields by dragging and dropping them, but hopefully you enjoy playing with a little bit of pet data. And if you have ideas of how else we could have prepped this data, then please feel free to share them with us on Twitter. We'd love to hear. Okay, thanks so much for watching.